Hey everybody, hope you're doing well today. So let's take a look at the distribution and costs of unemployment and understanding what it means. And these two pieces of information are really important for you to have in your mind for the evaluation portion of any question you would get on an IB exam. Okay, so first of all, let's take a look at the distribution of unemployment and what it means. So here we go, distribution of unemployment. And this is critical information for the evaluation of unemployment and things that you're going to want to have in your mind when you're talking about unemployment rates and the validity of the data. Because just like hidden unemployment in the last video is a limitation on unemployment data, the distribution of unemployment is a different limitation on the unemployment data that we usually receive. Because usually in almost all countries, the unemployment rate that's published is based on the national average rather than some more specific things. And these inequalities among different groups exist. So, for example, there could be geographical disparities, right? And unemployment's likely to vary quite markedly among different regions of the country. Some portions of the country might be poorer. They might be more agricultural, and so maybe the unemployment rates are low in the cities because that tends to be manufacturing area of the country. But in other places, in agricultural places, unemployment might be much higher, and so it's a little bit misleading. And of course, the opposite is true. Unemployment in the inner city might be higher or lower, but higher than the national average. So taking into account the geographical disparities is something that you're going to want to have in your arsenal for the evaluation portion of unemployment. And building on that, of course, there's age disparities. Unemployment rates in the under 25 grade age group are usually higher than national averages. And that kind of makes sense because a lot of kids under 25, first of all, they're not as experienced as an older set of the unemployment labor pool. The employment pool, not the unemployment labor pool, but the employment labor pool. And therefore, they're not necessarily the first ones to get a job in a particular industry. And the other thing is that a lot of kids under 25, you're coming out of university, you're trying to find a job, and there just might not be that many openings. So age disparities, and there could be the same thing at the end. The people that are 50 and over might have higher unemployment rates than national averages. Okay, ethnic differences. Unemployment rates might be very different for different minorities in a different country, right? Ethnic minorities in any country often suffer from higher unemployment rates than national average. And this might be a result in differences in educational opportunities or possibly due to attitudes and prejudice of employers. And any country in the world, you're going to see disparities between different groups. The dominant group tends to have a different unemployment rate than, say, some minority groups. So keep that in mind when you're evaluating unemployment data in your evaluation portion of your questions. And of course, the other one is gender disparities. Unemployment rates among women have tended to be higher than the rates for men in many industrialized nations. There may be all kinds of reasons for this, differences in education, maybe discrimination, other social factors. But these four things are your arsenal when going after the legitimacy or the validity of the unemployment rate data. And where you'd usually be able to bring this into in a question is the evaluation portion of a paper one question. Okay, so keep those in mind. Now let's take a look at the cost of unemployment to society as a whole. So unemployment poses a great cost to any economy, right? Unemployment of anything, especially a labor force, is an inefficiency in the total possible production possibilities of a country. So the cost of unemployment increases the longer that people are unemployed. And for example, the costs listed below are those associated with long-term unemployment. Okay, so there's specific costs, and that you see that we're looking at three different sets here. What are the costs to an unemployed person themselves, the cost of unemployment to society, and what are the costs to unemployment to the economy as a whole? Very distinct things. So let's take a look at the cost of unemployment to a particular person, right? The cost the cost to the unemployed people themselves. So unemployed people receive less income, obviously, than if they were employed, right? And that's assuming that if they are receiving some sort of unemployment benefits, it's usually set at a much lower rate than what they could earn if they were employed. A reduction in some income includes a lower standard of living for those that are unemployed and perhaps their families as well. The costs worsen the longer the person is unemployed. And it's also likely that the person who remains unemployed for a longer period of time could become increasingly dejected, right? And that leads to overall erosion of mental health and relationship breakdowns. I mean, unemployment is a really stressful time for any person. And if that affects an entire family, then you're pulling in, 4, 5, 6 other people. So if somebody is employed, then goes unemployed, there are going to be costs to that individual person themselves. Okay. Then let's take a look at what about the costs of unemployment to society? Well, the social cost of unemployment could be seen in higher levels of poverty, homelessness, higher rates of crime, vandalism, right? And while this may be simplification to blame these problems of homelessness and poverty and higher income or higher rates of crime, they're not unconnected. You will find that as unemployment rates go up, generally speaking, in a place, unemployment rates go up the same as when unemployment rates go up, you will see a rise in crime often. Not always, that's a broad generalization, but generally that is something that you could argue in the in the evaluation portion of your answer. And the last thing here is the cost to the economy as a whole. A production possibilities curve, remember, can be used to illustrate the key problem facing an economy. And so if unemployment if there's high rates of unemployment, then you know that the economy is not maximizing the quantity and the quality of its factors of production. So any unemployment rate is going to decrease output, right? And obviously decrease income. And if income goes down, then guess what? That's going to affect the output because companies and firms are going to realize that people do not have as much discretionary income. So the government may have to then spend money to solve these social problems created by unemployment. But that's a problem too, because where is the government going to get the money to pay for unemployment benefits, for example, or to stimulate the economy through creating jobs, if at the time of unemployment or high rates of unemployment, of course, politically, high rates of taxation are going to be super unpopular. So oftentimes you will see governments actually spend their way out of a recession. Recessions usually lead to high rates of unemployment. And the government will put itself in debt in order to stimulate the economy because the cost of raising taxes politically is too high at that moment. Okay, so I hope you found this video to be helpful to you. These are things that you need to have in your mind and understanding the shortcomings, really, of the unemployment rate in terms of the distribution of unemployment and, of course, the cost of unemployment to both individual people, society, and as to the economy as a whole. All right, I hope you found this video to be helpful, and we'll talk to you in a bit.